The fall guy is found. That is right, the US government has found the person who will be doing time, most likely, for the leaks of the classified information into a Minecraft Discord server. So we'll be talking about him, what his background is, what this means, and where we go with that, including the government's plan, by the way, to enter more Discord servers. So we'll be talking a lot about that. In other news, Joe Biden tells the world that he has won on inflation, in spite of the fact that he was the one who brought it on in the first place. And a lot of people out there will try to tell you that he was not the one that brought it on in the first place, but he was the one, and we'll talk about that and what that means and where we go with that. Julie Sue is on the hot seat and possibly will not be in the government, so we'll be talking just a bit about her and what this means and what is going to happen with the Labor Secretary's seat. So we'll go over some of that. And thousands of cows are killed in a fire explosion at a dairy farm in Texas because, well, our supply chains were not constrained enough. It is going to be all of this and more. I was the one flying the balloons. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and this is your evening news. We have got a lot of stuff to go over here today. Plus, we've got things that I like and things that I hate. And by the way, this is going to be one of the few times where there are more things that I like than things that I hate. So stay tuned towards the end of the show. At about 8 o'clock Central Time, we'll be going into that. I'm actually doing a book review at the end of the show today. I don't do that all the time, but yeah. Come back and join me for that. If you can't stay for the whole show, I know everybody's got family time. They've got, it's dinner time off of this, but I know my replay crowd is doing really, really well too. So come back in, strap yourselves in, grab some dinner, grab some popcorn maybe, get a drink, and we will talk about what is happening in the world tonight. So it's going to be a fun time. A couple of updates before we get started and before we call out the great people that need to be called out. Number one. This weekend, I am going to be doing some test streams over on the Rumble channel. The Rumble channel will be linked both in the Twitter and the Discord. So if you guys want to go and check that out on the test stream. If I can actually get this working and do this right, because what I understand on how to do this is you do need to set up a new RTMP every time you go onto Rumble. So I'm going to be experimenting with that, testing that, and seeing how that goes. But if I can actually manage to get this to work, then yes, I will actually do a Q&A on Rumble, and it will only be on Rumble, so I don't have to go out with the, oh, well, I can't say this on YouTube kind of thing anymore. I'll come back and we'll talk about things, we'll do some things, so hope to see some of you guys there. That'll be one of the few times I turn my webcam on a Sunday, by the way. Because I don't do that. We don't do webcam on Sundays. It just doesn't happen around here because that is the Lord's Day. And it's the day that I sit back and play video games and enjoy myself or go to my parents or anything else like that. But I've been at my parents for like the last 5 weeks in a row. So I'm actually going to take some time and do some channel work with that instead. So, and that's why we haven't been doing any video game stuff either. So there's that. So yeah, come back and join me for that. And yeah, we're still trying to get off and get launched onto the website. So the fund me links and some stuff coming for myself, those are going to be coming as well. So we're going to do that down in the future as well and watch for more stuff coming off of that. And yeah, it's going to be a great time. But we're going to get into it, and we're going to get started. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, and more. And by the way, KTZed, I gotta make sure, are you licensed to Hawkhound, and can I shout you out still, or I know that if you're there, you're probably not going to be allowed to join off on Turn Some Pages, but you did help get the channel to where it is too. So I want to make sure that we're apt with that, but I don't want to step on anybody's toes either and snag anybody's intellectual property. But do go check out KTZed anyway, even if I can't shout her out like that. And yeah, it's going to be a great time. Go check out all that great programming as we come together to bring you a better news experience from the common man for the common man. That is right. For too long, we have got all of our news, commentary, culture, music, religion from people who wear suits that cost more than our houses. Instead, we can go listen to people who are just like us, who have had to make some of the same decisions as us, and who live the same kinds of lifestyles that we do. So go check out all that great programming. It's going to be a great time. And let's get down into the news of the day. And we're going to start with the finance as usual, but we're going to fly through this because I want to spend some time on this news stuff here. Whoops, we got a preview off of this. All right, looking at the Dow spent the day up after a little bit of a rocky start. Steady climb coming through the day, coming up to 34,029.69. That is up 383.19 points, or 1.14%. Looking in at your Bitcoin, which also had a good climbing day. It was a little bit rockier on the day and a few more tumbles and pitfalls through that, but that is what we're at with that. $30,327 and 40 US cents. That is up 416 US dollars and 70 US cents, or 1.39% on the day. So you Bitcoin holders, you're winning. And by the way, even though I don't hold a lot of Bitcoin, I'm a Bitcoin holder too, and I am winning. So I like to see some of that here. The gas prices are still steady, but they're still up. I just went in and threw $30 into my truck before I got started. That's the hard part, by the way, with my truck, because the gas tank is so damned big. I mean, it lasts forever, but usually because I'm running out of one job and going into the other, I don't have time to sit out there and wait a full 15 minutes to fill 30 gallons worth of fuel into my truck, and I really want to top off because I do fear that this is going to start going higher, but we'll continue to watch this and see what happens here. Let's grab one from IBD real quick. We'll look at a little bit of the market news and the futures, and then we'll look at the layoffs report, and then we will go into what I think most people are here for today, and on the replays as well. All right, from Investors Business Daily, Dow Futures market rally stages bullish rebound. JP Morgan and Citigroup, United Health do. From Ed Carson, Dow Futures fell slightly after hours along with the S&P and the NASDAQ Futures. JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and United Health are big earnings reports on tap for Friday. The market rally rebounded strongly following another slower than expected inflation reading along with rising jobless claims. We'll actually be talking, not in finance, we'll be talking about inflation later on because Biden decided that he had to come back and laugh and, I'm going to take a victory lap. The major indices recouped Wednesday's losses or more. The S&P 500 hit its best level in nearly 2 months, joining the Dow Jones. The NASDAQ staged a subsequent follow-through day. Mega caps had a strong session. Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft, and Tesla all rose more than 2%. Google rose back above a buy point. Apple and Microsoft rose within a buy zone. Tesla and Amazon rallied through within the bases, formed just below the 200-day moving averages. Meta hit an 11-month high. In spite of the fact that their morale is in the tank, they were almost my layoffs report today. Amazon is joining Microsoft and Google in the generative AI field, which terrifies me, by the way, the e-commerce giant and cloud computing giant said on Thursday. Meta is on the IBD leaderboard and swing trader. Microsoft is on the IBD long-term leaders. Investors should be taking part in this market uptrend, but big bank earnings loom large. I wouldn't. That's not official financial advice, but I wouldn't. I'm going to say that right off the bat, I wouldn't. This seems like a bubble and a flash in the pan, especially with bank earnings on the rise. On the futures, Dow Futures fell 0.1 versus fair value, the S&P edged lower, and the NASDAQ fell 0.1. Boeing warned of lower 737 MAX production and deliveries for short term, citing a parts issue from the supplier. Boeing fell more than 4%, weighing on Dow Futures. And remember, overnight action in Dow Futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate to actual trading in the next regular stock market session. All right. Yeah, $30 fills my car all the way now. I would be willing to bet, and I haven't filled for a while, but I'm over $100 bill again to fill. 30 times 369. Yeah, I'm over a $100 bill to fill right now. All right, and this actually surprised me because there was so much eagerness, especially during the last recession. Back in 2008, there was so much eagerness and so many people rose to prominence in the real estate field because of that recession. And they kept telling us, and even when I took my real estate courses, which I never finished, but the advertising was always there of, it's a recession-proof job. It's always going to be there. Just go and take this, and it's recession-proof. Well, Seattle-based Redfin lays off another 200 employees. From Como News staff. Seattle-based Redfin announced Thursday it will lay off approximately 4% of its workforce. The real estate brokerage said 201 employees were laid off in limited groups, primarily real estate support due to the housing downturn and economic uncertainty. Redfin announced layoffs to 13% of its workers in November. While another layoff is painful, especially for those leaving the company, Redfin must continue to adapt to the current economic climate. The company said on Thursday, the people leaving Redfin have been wonderful colleagues, and if they wanted to return, we'd welcome them back in a stronger housing market. A Redfin spokesperson said the employees who were laid off will, I think that's a typo, I think the with there is a typo. The employees who were laid off will receive 10 to 15 weeks of severance pay depending on their tenure and 3 months of healthcare coverage. So, a short layoff report today. Now, interesting thing to note as well is they're not actually laying off agents, but I think realistically the agents know that they're laid off by themselves because remember when you're in a when you are a real estate agent or a licensee, as they're supposed to be called through it, you are an independent contractor. Redfin or Century 21 or First Weber or people like that are not actually, you're not employed by those companies. You sign on, you contract, and they do a lot of your paperwork for you, but you are your own boss when you're in real estate. And I think that some of these people, even though they're not laid off because they're their own bosses, they are technically in kind of the same boat as some of the laid off people because, well, we're in that situation of the fact that a lot of this is really slow. I mean, housing is having problems. It is. So the people who are getting laid off here are clerical, office work, probably programmers, 201 employees, which for being that 4%, that means that they have a lot of employees on the clerical side. I'm not going to lie, that's a huge number for what I perceive a real estate firm is. And most of the ones around here are really small too, unless they're big and national. Like Century 21, I know if we heard that Century 21 laid off a lot of their salaried employees, that would mean that there'd probably be at 4% or 13% even. That'd be a lot of people. That would be a buttload of people for Century 21. But like your First Weber or things like that, these are small brokerages. Whereas if you heard like 2% of First Weber got laid off, that'd be like 4 people, I would think, total across all the entire group. So, another 200 people out of the workforce. And yet they keep saying that unemployment is down and these people, our economy's doing great. Thank you, KTZed. All right, let's have a look at what happened with the Pentagon leaks. From CNN to start with, FBI arrests suspect in connection with intelligence leaks. From Evan Perez, Jeremy Herb, Natasha Bertrand, and Zachary Cohen and Kevin Liptak. By the way, I said hi to KTZed. Grant is also here. Beam me up, Mr. Scott is already here. Grant is, are you ready to roam? You stole that from Putz, by the way. Luke Wee is here as well. Because Putz put that in my Discord this morning. I woke up to that. And I know you do all my clerical work and my maintenance on my server. That's why you have president status. Even though it's mine, you know more about the program than I do, so I let you do all that kind of stuff. Alright, anyway, let's get into this here. Let's talk about this gentleman. We can even see the perp walk.
We believe now that the FBI has arrested the person who they suspect is behind the leaks of these documents. His name is Jack Teixeira, 21-year-old member of the Massachusetts Air.
Is that how that gets pronounced, Teixeira? I had said Texiera. Okay, Teixeira we'll go with. I'm actually glad I watched this video before we got started.
National Guard. There are some pictures there coming in, I believe, showing some of the law enforcement activity there at the family home in Massachusetts where the arrest was made. This is now obviously in the hands of, there you see the pictures of someone who is being, we believe, to be Teixeira, who is being taken into custody. The FBI was preparing to do this. They had hoped to have a little...
Okay, this is for show. You've got a guy backing down with his hands on his head, and I understand he's a guardsman. They say they got it out of his home, but they've got guardsmen in the vehicle with full flak and helmets on. This is for show. This isn't. They're making an example out of this guy. They're coming out here and saying, don't you dare leak anything from the Pentagon again, otherwise we might not have as much trigger discipline this time.
A little more time as part of this investigation, but the identity of this person was made public by some of the news media reports, the New York Times, and of course the Washington Post, which has been doing a lot of reporting on this over the last few days, reported on his identity. So I'm told by sources that the investigation kind of accelerated as a result of his identity becoming public. So now we expect that he's going to be taken to a federal court there in Massachusetts, in Boston, where the procedure will begin to remove him and bring him down to the Washington, D.C. area, where we expect that the charges are going to be filed for his connection to the leaking of the...
They're putting him in front of a D.C. trial judge. And again, now that I'm coming off of this, I have not pre-read any of this. I found this... Well, I kind of knew that they'd got a guy earlier on because I'd seen something on Twitter while I was at work, while I was on lunch. I saw something about that earlier, but there's a reason. I can tell you before I even read into any of this. There is a reason they're bringing him to D.C. to go face down a jury there, because they can get a sympathetic jury, just like when they do all the J6ers. And the reason that I told you not to go to New York to protest over there, when they were talking about, we're going to do protests in front of Alvin Bragg's office in Manhattan. Yeah, and you're going to sit in front of Alvin Bragg too. When they catch you, and they will catch you, and they drag you in and haul you in and they ping your cell phone, you will sit in front of Alvin Bragg, which is part of the reason that I told you this was not a good idea. Realistically, even when you're in the South Bay area, you're still in a situation, and you're in a position where you might get a sympathetic judge, jury, etc. But they're not going to take a chance. They are bringing him right in front of a D.C. jury, a progressive, left-wing jury, because the crime was committed in Massachusetts. Massachusetts has district on this. Even the federal court in Boston has jurisdiction here. By the way, this was, and I looked this up, I had not heard of this town, but this is not too far from where I lived when I lived out there. Well, relatively, by the way. Because keep in mind that a half an hour to Providence is considered a long distance from where I lived. This is, and I'm not going to give the name, obviously, even though one of the things with him is the fact that he kind of gave up the name because of the P.O. box. So I'm not revealing too many details over the fact of where he was. This is in the RRC's old neighborhood before he left. His P.O. box down there, or when he was still up in Massachusetts, was in Somerset. I know where he actually was off there. He wasn't in Somerset, but Yeah, his P.O. box was a few towns over. So this is in his neck of the woods where he was living. And plus, as he said, he was also from West Warwick, too. So right in the neighborhood that he wants to be. And I kind of, honestly, I'm going to, I think, text him or call him after the show now that I'm looking at this a little bit more and see what he has to say about this. But we got to talk a bit about what's happening here. From CNN, a member of the Air National Guard was arrested by the FBI on Thursday in connection with the leaking of classified documents that have been posted online. AG Garland announced on Thursday. The arrest of Jack Teixeira, 21, comes following a fast-moving search by the U.S. government for the identity of the leaker who posted classified documents to social media platform popular with video gamers. Teixeira was arrested en masse without incident, even though they had rifles and servicemen and jarheads and everything else out there for it. Garland said, and will be arraigned in federal court there. The investigation is ongoing. We will share more information at the appropriate time, the AG said, declining to answer questions. Yes, he'll be arraigned in the federal court there because that's who has jurisdiction. Teixeira will first appear in court on Friday in Boston, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office there. The FBI said in a statement that it took Teixeira into custody at a residence in North Dighton for his alleged involvement in leaking classified U.S. government and military documents. The FBI is continuing to conduct authorized law enforcement activity at the residence, the agency said, since late last week. The FBI has aggressively pursued investigative leads, and today's arrest exemplifies our continued commitment to identifying, pursuing, and holding accountable those who betray our country's trust and put our national security at risk. The leaked documents posted on social media, some of which have been obtained by CNN, included detailed intelligence assessments of his allies and adversaries alike, including on the state of the war with Ukraine and the challenges Kiev and Moscow face as the war appears stuck in a stalemate. Multiple U.S. officials told CNN that Teixeira is believed to be the leader of the group where a trove of classified documents has been posted. The search for the suspect began with thousands of people who had access to the documents, but investigators were able to quickly narrow the search to potential members of the chat group, with evidence collected in the days immediately following the discovery of classified documents online by U.S. officials. While there's a large number of people who had access to the documents, investigators were able to home in on a small number for closer scrutiny, thanks to the forensic trail left by the person who posted the documents. Earlier Thursday, President Brandon appeared to suggest the U.S. government was close to identifying the leaker. Brandon then briefed on the arrest between his speech to Parliament and his departure for a banquet dinner in his honor at the Dublin Castle. According to a U.S. official, he was at the hotel for roughly 90 minutes in between the two events. Diaper change, bran muffin, and possibly recharge the next clone to go out and appear before everybody else in Dublin. Biden has been regularly briefed on the investigation, officials said, as well as the efforts by his top officials to engage with allies who have been identified within or unsettled by the contents of the leaked information. According to one of the officials behind the scenes, it had been a reality that has loomed over a deeply personal and important foreign trip for Biden. One official acknowledged, and we'll be talking about his little trip a little bit later. So that's the leak. Look at
these documents. At this point, there's not a lot we know about the exact charges. We expect we might hear more from the Attorney General and from the Justice Department soon, whenever they decide to make public the charges that are to be announced. But we do know, obviously, that they, as you could hear from that briefing just now at the Pentagon, they're treating this as a criminal matter. They believe that there's some serious national security damage that has been done by the exposure of these documents. The Washington Post said that there's as many as 500 documents that they had seen on various platforms, including on these chat rooms, Discord, which is a gaming platform. And so that's, of course, now in the hands of the Justice Department and prosecutors, who are going to be bringing the federal charges against this young man. Again, 21-year-old Jack Teixeira, 21 years old, member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard. Again, those are pictures, we believe, of Teixeira being taken into custody by the FBI and by the investigators there who've been working this case frantically over the last few days.
And again, I look at this, I see all the heavily armored military presence, the bulletproof vests and everything, and I look at all this and I say to myself, this is for show. This is another we didn't see the kick down the door, the storm, the drag out, or anything else like we saw with what was the Trump aide's name that they did that for? I can't think of his name. Roger Stone. But this is for show. They're doing this. They're making an example out of him. They're coming out, rifles born, a step away from rifles blazing. In any other situation, it would have been two guys in suits with 45s in their sport coats. In literally any other situation, that's what this would have been. Let's read from Reuters. Big U.S. intelligence leak was by gun enthusiasts in 20s, Washington Post reports. The person who leaked U.S. classified documents prompting a national security investigation is a gun enthusiast in his 20s, who worked on a military base, the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness, reported on Wednesday, citing fellow members of an online chat group. The person, who shared classified information to a group on the instant messaging platform Discord, of about 24 men and young boys who shared mutual love of guns, military gear, and God, the Post said. Wait, I thought that, I thought this was in a gaming or a Minecraft Discord, not my Discord. I mean, that right there describes my Discord to a T. 24 young men who have a mutual love of guns, military gear, and God. The Post based its report, which did not name the person, on interviews with two members of the Discord chat group. Reuters was unable to verify the details of the report. Discord said in a statement earlier Wednesday that it was cooperating with law enforcement, which, by the way, we're going to talk about that later too, because Discord may have become a compromised platform. And I do have a Gilded, by the way, set up. Do you think he'll use the defense? But I did it in Minecraft. Gun enthusiast. Not relevant to the story. Oh, but it is. If he was a bird watcher, do you think they would have said bird watching enthusiast? Yes, they would have. Of course. It's Reuters. They're completely objective. From the New York Post. Law enforcement search home of Jack Teixeira, Mass Air National Guardsman at center of DigiLeaks scandal. From Sam Chamberlain and Emily Crane. Mass Air National Guardsman Jack Teixeira, the leader of the Discord group where dozens of sensitive U.S. intelligence documents were posted in recent months, was arrested on Thursday. I would say that he's going to come home to a completely trashed house as soon as he gets out on bail, but he's not going to have bail. Teixeira was taken into custody by the FBI at his home in North Dighton, Massachusetts, about 20 miles east of Providence. The FBI made an arrest and is continuing to conduct authorized law enforcement activity at the residence, tearing every wall out of the place and dumping everything on the ground and leaving everything a mess. They're tossing the place. And again, not necessarily to come back and see if they can find the evidence. They have the evidence that they want. They're looking to give him something intimidating to come back to. As this is an ongoing matter, we cannot provide further comment at this time. The New York Times, a former newspaper, first reported that investigators wanted to talk to Teixeira in connection with the leaks, described as the biggest national security breach in a decade. The fast-moving developments followed a report by the Washington Post late Wednesday that the classified files had been shared to a Discord channel called Thug Shaker Central. made up of about 24 online pals who regularly discuss guns, video games, and racist memes. Did you ever cover Elon Musk's BBC interview? No, I didn't. We'll do it tomorrow if you link it. And there again, by the way, are we talking about my Discord? 24 online pals who regularly discuss guns, video games, and racist memes. That sounds like the Ed's World Discord, I'm just saying. Kind of sounds like Grant's Discord too, actually, a little bit. Although there are more people in there. The Times also reported the details of the interior of Teixeira's childhood home from pictures posted to social media that appear to match items identified in the background of some of the photographed secret documents. Images of classified documents reviewed by the Post indicate that they're copies, briefing slides that were photographed while laid out on a desk or table before being shared online. In at least 2 photographs, a brochure with apparent information about a rifle scope can be seen. A package of Gorilla Glue was also spotted in another photograph. The classified documents were first posted in the group's Discord chat last year, according to some members. On February 28th, another member then reposted the documents to another Discord channel linked to YouTuber Wow Mao. A member of that channel in turn posted some of them on March 4th to the even larger channel Minecraft Earth Map, which that's how they got to the Minecraft one. So, yeah, they're gonna go toss this home. They're gonna rip that apart. They're going to make a statement. They always do. AG Garland getting in on this, and again, part of the thing that we see here, where they're going to move him to DC apparently to go back and try him for that. AG Garland gives update as FBI makes arrest in connection with leak of U.S. military documents. From Ryan Saavedra. AG Garland announced Thursday that federal law enforcement officials have arrested 21-year-old Air National Guard member Jack Teixeira in connection with the leaking of U.S. classified documents. Garland said the FBI agents took Teixeira into custody this afternoon without incident in their investigation into unauthorized removal, retention, and transmission of classified national defense information. There's Raw's Alerts video of this. We'll look at this again. I want to see if there's Garland speech, though. No video of Garland speech. I'll have to do the Garland impression for it. I'm surprised there wasn't a command to rough them up a little bit, but I suppose there are cameras everywhere. Let's see. Roughly half a dozen FBI agents pushed into a residence and arrested Teixeira. Photos and videos posted on social media showed a large law enforcement presence outside the home as helicopters swarmed overhead. All for a 21-year-old moron. The FBI addressed the arrest in a statement saying that they took the suspect into custody and are continuing to conduct authorized law enforcement activity in the residence at North Dighton. Let's see. No more on Garland for that. So everything from here down is a lot of the same information we read in these 3 articles, and nothing more from Garland. But this is the interesting part, and this is what I do want to talk about when we're talking about this. CNBC, U.S. intel agencies may change how they monitor social media chat rooms after missing leaked U.S. documents for weeks. This republished to CNBC from regular NBC from Carol E. Lee, Ken Delanian, and Dan DeLuce. The Biden admin is looking at expanding how it monitors social media sites and chat rooms after U.S. intelligence agencies failed to spot classified Pentagon documents circulating online for weeks, according to a senior admin official and a congressional official briefed on the matter. You know what that means, don't you? We're going to have agents in our Discords. And they're going to have fun in mine. I can tell you that right off the bat. I might get a knock on my door once they come back and find mine. There's a good chance, in fact, that I'll get a knock on my door when they see the contents that are posted, especially in the NSFW channels. I would say that's a better than 50-50 shot. Thank you, Grant, by the way. I see the articles there. We'll put that on the stack for tomorrow. Yeah, if there's ever something that you want me to talk about, link it up. The possible changes in the intelligence gathering process is just one potential shift, as officials scramble to determine not only how the documents leaked, but also how to prevent another damaging incident. Well, it's not a Discord thing, by the way. And that's, I think, one of the things that needs to be paid attention to in this, is it's not a Discord thing. It's not. Because they had to get out of the Pentagon or the Air National Guard base, whichever it goes, and to Teixeira's home. Where's the Air Force Base in Mass, by the way? That guy can't be going all the way from Hanscom down to Dighton. Can he? Is there another Air Force Base in Mass? He might be going to the one on Cape Cod, actually. Because there's the Air Force Base on Cape Cod, too. There's a few of them down there. Let's bring this over here. Because my thought is that, yeah, I guess we do have the Air Force Base down here. And then the National Guard out in Cape Cod as well. It's still a haul, by the way, coming from Somerset, Swansea area. But it's either that or he's going all the way up to Hanscom up here on the North Shore. Possibly out to the west, because they've got the Westfield Mass office and the Westover Reserve Base. But as a guardsman, he wouldn't be going to the Reserve Base. So yeah, that's good to know. But regardless, whether it came out of Cape Cod or whether it came from Hanscom or it came out from Springfield, the focus needs to be not on the fact that they went on the Discord server. The focus really needs to be, and this is going to be what they use to go crack down on people like me, essentially, is the fact that they popped up on a Discord server. Never mind the fact that they were photographed copies that had to leave the Air Force Base, and they were taken. The photographs were taken in the home. That's how they knew to go and justify and go into the home. But be the government as they always are, they're going to be focusing on the wrong goddamn thing, because they always do. Because it's the government. Let's see. The possible change in the intelligence gathering process is just one potential shift, as officials scramble to determine not only how the documents leaked, but also how to prevent another damaging incident. President Brandon and Lloyd Austin were briefed about the disclosure last week, admin officials say, but the secret documents appeared online in early March on the Discord social media app. According to Bellingcat, the open source investigative group, some documents may have appeared as early as January, the group said. That's part of the reason I think this is going to be a fall guy kind of thing too. I don't even know if this is the guy that leaked them. But he's got access. He's got apparently enough clearance to be considered as a suspect for this. and was in one of the Discords where it first got shown. And yeah, some of the photos possibly show brochures and things in his house. So I don't know. The president and other officials were dismayed when they learned the documents had been online for at least a month. Nobody's happy about this, said the senior admin official. The admin is now looking at expanding the universe of online sites that intelligence agencies and law enforcement authorities track, the official said. Well, Discord is already one of them. And 4chan is already one of them. They already monitor these sites. The secret Pentagon documents appeared in an obscure part of the internet focused on gaming, and some former intelligence officials said it was understandable that the US authorities did not spot the disclosure. The US government may not have been looking there, but cybersecurity experts have long known that Discord has been used by criminals and hackers to spread malware and stealthily transfer stolen information. The Discord domain helps attackers disguise the exfiltration of data by making it look like any other traffic coming across the network, said a 2021 report by Cisco's Talos cybersecurity team. The intelligence community is now grappling with how it can scrub platforms like Discord in search of relevant material to avoid a similar leak in the future, said the congressional official. Well, let's see. You've already got agents in there radicalizing young boys and then going and buying them rifles so they can commit mass shootings. Why don't you pull those morons out of those Discords? And that's it. I don't have a follow-up for that. Just get them out of those Discords. And the rest of Discord, for that matter. You've got different problems than the US and the world learning how embarrassingly you're failing in the Ukraine. The disclosure also raised fresh questions about how sensitive intelligence information is handled inside the government, and whether the pool of people allowed to access it needs to be scaled back. Well, the amount of classified information needs to be scaled back, but that's beside the point. That's where your focus needs to be. Because whether it went to a Discord server, or whether it went to Twitter, or Telegram, you're looking in the wrong place. But you're looking in the wrong place for a reason. And by the way, it's awfully convenient that in an election year again, we're now going to have another reason and excuse for the government to expand its surveillance of various online platforms, like Discord. I hate to say that, but I mean, the tinfoil detectors in my head are just screaming and going off right now. I don't trust this. I don't. Because again, we have photos, we have copies that are made, taken to a home, photographed on a cell phone camera, and then after all that, then they're uploaded to Discord. And yet CNBC, CNN, even the New York Post went straight to Discord as being the problem. Doesn't that seem kind of funny to you? Seems funny to me. It seems like there are 3 steps that need to be focused on before it ever got to Discord. But that's where we're at with that. Al Jazeera. Embarrassing. Pentagon leaks damage U.S. security, analysts say. From Ali Harb. There's plenty of uncertainty about the supposed secret U.S. government intelligence assessments circulating online. Are they authentic? Are they accurate? Who leaked them and why? Despite growing questions, experts seem to agree on one thing. The leaks are damaging to Washington's intelligence gathering and foreign policy. The documents include details of the Western military support for Ukraine, information about Russia's war effort, and the intelligence collected from allied states. U.S. officials have not denied the validity of the documents, acknowledging that they present a very serious risk to national security and appear to be real, though in some cases altered, but they warn that the leaks have the potential to spread disinformation. But you've said the majority of them are real. How is that disinformation? It's not disinformation just because you don't like it. If you confirm that the majority of it's real and it's getting spread, that's not spreading disinformation, that's spreading information. Analysts have said the leaks risk exposing the intelligence sources and could cause a diplomatic headache for Washington. Mick Mulroy, a senior Pentagon official who served in the CIA, called the leak damaging. I think the US needs to do a better job of securing classified documents, Mulroy said. The biggest concern, he added, is that the possible compromising of methods of intelligence gathering, including human sources. Mulroy stressed the importance of the ability to protect our assets, protect our way of doing, so we know information that goes into making policy. While the intelligence assessments, which were meant for senior officials at the Pentagon, did not include the names of possible human sources, experts say that the revelations could help U.S. adversaries, particularly Russia, identify American assets in their midst. Glenn Carl, former senior U.S. intelligence official, described the leak as a failure of major magnitude and that some people may well die from. Any counterintelligence service will be hastily and thoroughly now worked out who has access to that information in their country and reducing the number of possible individuals, Carl told Al Jazeera's Inside Story. So, I don't know. Again, we have an arrest, and I have more questions, but I always have more questions. Alright, let's talk Biden and inflation. White House turns head with ad taking credit for lower inflation from Ben Ziesloft. And there is the Instagram post right there. The White House provoked criticism on social media for an advertisement claiming that Biden admin successfully decreased inflation over the past several months. Headline inflation declined to 5% year over year rate as of last month, according to the data published Wednesday by the BLS, marking a slight reprieve even as price levels on certain categories continue to rise. Inflation nevertheless remains between 3 times and 4 times higher than the rates seen at the start of the current admin. The advertisement, posted on Instagram, featured a grinning President Biden wearing his aviators next to an announcement of the good news. Let's look. Good news! Inflation has fallen by 45% from its summer peak under President Biden. We're seeing price declines in gas, groceries, and electronics. Even though in the past 10 days gas has gone up 20 cents a gallon here, and wages are up. This progress is more breathing room for hardworking Americans, the White House said. We ought to build on our progress by lowering costs, creating jobs, and reducing the deficit. The deficit that just hit over $1 trillion for the year. $436 billion more than this same point last year. And reject congressional Republicans' attempts to hold our economy hostage in order to cut taxes for the wealthy, ship jobs overseas, and cut programs Americans count on. They don't want to do those things. They want to cut spending. Even as energy prices fell and food prices were relatively stable, costs for shelter, apparel, and household supplies continued to increase. Core inflation, which factors out the more volatile food and energy categories, increased at a 5.6% rate year over year. Social media commenters observed the prices in their areas remain considerably elevated. Prices are still insane here, not sure where you get your stats, one user said. You obviously haven't been to the grocery store lately, added another. Are you going to congratulate yourself on fixing the inflation that you created? Please, please stop now, remarked a third. And see, that's the thing. As the Daily Wire pointed out, we were sub 2% inflation at the beginning of this admin. No? Yeah, I'll deal with that later. You always get the new things when you do the restart, and I did the restart right before we started doing research here. We're 3 to 4 times above where we were at the beginning of the admin. I think 1.7 was the final number that we were at. 1.7 or 1.8 was the inflationary number that we were at the time, and people were balking at that. It's now 5% year over year, and that's 5% on top of 9% from last year. I remember when 5% started to come up and people said, our inflation is going too fast, we need to do something to curb it. And now this is a victory lap? Record inflation over the past 2 years has indeed offered difficulties to households. Purchasing power erodes when price level increases outpace nominal rises in pay, especially for low-income families, which typically allocate more of their income to core living expenses relative to wealthier families. Real wages, which consider the effect of inflation, fell 1.3% year over year as of last month, according to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Yeah, once you fix for inflation, I am below where I was still at the beginning of the pandemic. I'm below where I was, and I was making $4 less an hour with no overtime. Now I make $4 more, and I have mandatory overtime. And my purchasing power still has not caught up to where I was before. Biden also claimed Wednesday that his policies created a more dynamic economy for the long haul. On the same day, however, officials from the Federal Reserve predicted that the nation can expect a mild recession by the end of the year. So, that's where we are at with that. Grant says we're always going to have to abandon Discord. It's just a matter of when. Leadership at Discord is terrible. I did make a Gilded as a backup. So, it's out there. This is an op-ed from Fox Business. Biden unleashed inflation. This simple solution would reduce it. From Jason Isaac over at Fox Business. If Americans can come together across the aisle to agree on anything, it's that the Biden admin's agenda has been disastrous for Americans, with no end in sight to price hikes, causing financial turmoil for so many families. It's becoming more and more clear every day that we must reverse course. For once, Congress is considering a simple common sense solution to ease the burden of inflation. A single sentence bill that can unleash the power of the free market, create good paying jobs, and put Americans' hard-earned dollars back into their pockets. It all has to do with energy. The average American rarely thinks about access to energy unless the power unexpectedly goes out, or, as is becoming increasingly common, they can't afford to fill up their gas tank. But no part of our lives would be possible without it. Though there are many reasons for inflation and economic instability, energy is the crux of the issue. It's about more than just the juice for our smartphones, scrolling sessions, and gas for our cars. Electricity powers the banks, hospitals, schools, warehouses, stores, data centers, dispatch centers, and many more societal institutions that our everyday lives revolve around. If the price of energy goes up, the price of literally everything goes up along with it, and the consequences are painful for the American people. Since Biden took office in 2021, he's wasted no opportunity to demonize the American oil and gas industry and smother production of affordable and reliable energy. He has repeatedly overstepped the authority to enact new regulations and taxes that have made it increasingly difficult for energy producers to do business and force higher prices on American families when they can least afford it. This is a stark comparison to 2019, when pro-energy, pro-business policies saved the average household $2,500 a year, and America was a leader on the world stage. The Biden admin's policies, on the other hand, have resulted in Americans paying over $5,200 a year in higher costs. According to the most recent data available, a third of households reported difficulty affording energy costs. Yeah, they're up there. In 2018, even before prices had shot through the roof, and 32% of Americans have paid a utility bill late in the last 6 months. We have yet to meet anyone who wouldn't like to have those dollars back. That's why the Natural Gas Tax Repeal Act is the right next step for every American. Buried in the deceitfully named Inflation Production Act was the first ever tax on methane. Burying a tax on natural gas in a bill advertised to reduce inflation isn't just doublespeak, it's a lie to the American people. In order to actually lower costs and inflation for the American families, we must repeal burdensome regulation, secure supply chains, and unleash American energy. The Natural Gas Tax Repeal Act stands up for American consumers by striking the president's new natural gas tax that will drive up the cost of all energy bills and make inflation even worse. The left is quick to argue that taxing methane is essential to fight against climate change. However, that conveniently ignores the fact that American producers do it more responsibly, efficiently, and safer than any other oil and gas producer in the world. Methane emissions attributed to the oil and gas sector have dropped by 14%, while production has increased by over 15%. Well, and Fox has controlled opposition. And Jason Isaac and August Pfluger, while they're doing a great thing in trying to take down some of the burdensome tax regulations, what we need to do is not just waive a tax on methane. That's not going to solve anything. Because so little of our life depends on methane natural gas, especially this time of year. Now, if we were in the middle of January, it would be another story. Especially January in Wisconsin, that would be a completely different story. But a very, very small amount of our lives depends on methane. Gasoline, diesel, and coal are the three things that you need to go back and drive the cost down on at this point. Because those are the lifeblood of this economy. If you have anything at all, a truck brought it. At one point or another, a truck put something somewhere to make your house, your car, your groceries, your flat screen TV, your cupboards, your cabinets, your toilet, your couch, your bookshelf, your refrigerator, your stove. That all came by a truck. And yes, we're trying to go out into the EV trucks. I don't think it's going to work the way that you think that it is, especially in Wisconsin winters. But that's where the lifeblood is. That's where you need to improve to get anything else done in this country. And anybody who is trying to go differently off that is willfully lying to you. From Newsweek, Biden eyes inflation win from across the Atlantic. From Julia Carbonaro, and by the way, Biden is also warning of defending democracy as Northern Ireland faces tensions. It's not democracy, it's hegemony. As he navigates what has been described as a very personal trip to Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, President Brandon received good news from the other side of the Atlantic, with the latest data from the BLS showing that inflation has dropped significantly. On Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, the BLS published the latest data about inflation in the U.S., March's Consumer Price Index, which measures the average change over time in the prices paid by urban consumers for a market basket of consumer goods and services. Largely in line with the forecast by Bloomberg, which expected CPI to have risen by 5.1% year on year. All items index increased 5% over the last 12 months. The CPI rose 0.1% in March on a seasonally adjusted basis, down from increasing 0.4% in February. That means the inflation has now eased to its lowest level since May of 2021, and a far cry from the 6% recorded in February. Yet core CPI, which covers inflation of all goods and services except volatile food and fuel prices, has increased by 5.6%. That means inflation remains high enough that the Federal Reserve might once again raise the interest rates during its next policy meeting. I'm always surprised when they put these articles out there and it's like nothing about what Biden has said, because he has no idea what to say about things. No questions, please. But while they're taking a victory lap about inflation, from MarketWatch, U.S. budget deficit hits $1.1 trillion with a T in first half of fiscal year, Treasury says. From Robert Schrader. The U.S. budget deficit hit $1.1 trillion in the first half of the fiscal year 2023, the Treasury Department said on Wednesday. $432 billion more than the shortfall in the same period a year ago. That includes a March deficit of $378 billion. The wider deficit is mostly due to increased government spending, which rose by 13% in the first 6 months of fiscal 2023. Revenues were 3% lower from October through March than during the year-ago period. Social Security spending rose as the number of beneficiaries and average benefit payments increased. The interest on the public debt rose by 32%, reflecting higher interest rates. At the same time, there were large decreases in spending related to the pandemic, such as the small business admin. President Brandon's latest budget proposal aims to cut deficits by $3 trillion over the next 10 years, but his proposals, like raising Medicare tax rate for people making over $400,000 a year, are in sharp contrast with those of Republicans who control the House and are now emphasizing spending cuts. The GOP has yet to release a long-term budget. Am I working on DLive? I see Sully Blue stickering on DLive. Am I working on DLive? No, apparently not. Let me throw something over to Sully here. Yeah, when I saw Sully's stickers pop in, I'm like, am I on DLive again? No, I'm not. It's still not popping up. Let me drop the YouTube link in for Sully over there too. I don't know why I'm doing it in DLive's. Oh, he's already there. I don't have to drop the link for him. He's already there. Yeah. A little side note on what's happened there. So, about 3 weeks ago, DLive failed to get the end stream notice from OBS, what I use to encode everything, and there's no manual way to kick the stream. So it was first stuck in a musical loop from the end of the stream, like the last second of the Stephen Ingram song that I used to end the stream. It just kept looping that, and now it's just on a death loop. Like, I can pop over here to my monitor and show that it says, yeah, unable to connect over here. And we're going to drop out of that before we get into all the screen and screen and screen and screen kind of stuff. It's going to start. I know it is. All right, where were we? So they're sitting over here, and again, as we were talking about before, they're pointing out the fact that we're doing all this great stuff with inflation and everything else, but yet you keep spending us into the ground, using money that isn't there. That's why I anticipate we're going to get another spike in inflation. It's going to be hard for it to spike very high because it's already going over near 10% inflation from the year before. But I anticipate we're going to see 6 again before we go back and drop back down. On the abortion front, appeals court revives FDA approval of abortion pill mifepristone, allows some restrictions to stand. From John Fritzy and Christine Fernando. A federal appeals court late Wednesday pressed pause on part of a lower court ruling that had suspended approval of mifepristone, but allowed other parts of the decision to stand, potentially setting up a showdown at the Supreme Court. The order from a divided 3-judge panel in Louisiana allowed the FDA's 23-year-old approval of mifepristone to remain in effect, but declined to stay a lower court's ruling that imposed significant restrictions on access to the drug. In a controversial ruling last week, a federal judge in Texas suspended the FDA's approval of mifepristone. U.S. District Judge Matthew Kacsmaryk, appointed by former President Trump, paused his own decision for 7 days to give Biden admin time to file the appeal. The question before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit was a technical one. Whether to continue that pause past Friday, but the answer had real-world consequences for the ability of Americans to access the drug. The appeals court paused the critical section of Kacsmaryk's ruling dealing with the original Clinton admin approval of mifepristone. That means the drug will remain available to Americans as the courts consider the merits of the case. But it may be available on a much more limited basis. That's because the appeals court allowed to stand portions of Kacsmaryk's ruling that knocked down subsequent FDA actions that expanded access to the drug. For instance, in 2016, the FDA allowed non-doctors to prescribe the drug. In 2021, the agency permitted the drug to be dispensed through the mail. The big question now is whether the Biden admin will appeal those portions of the ruling dealing with restrictions to the Supreme Court. Neither the Justice Department nor the White House immediately responded to a request for comment. So, and this will be interesting. The big thing for me is whether or not, what this will be, honestly. And whether or not the Supreme Court is true in its indicators of how it overturned Roe versus Wade. Now, I would like to see mifepristone never used again, personally. But again, my avenue of doing things and the way that I do things is to conduct my life in a way that I would never need to have an abortion to begin with. Because I know that there are still ways that they're going to be aborted. Coat hangers still exist, pennyroyal tea still exists. And you can't eliminate evil from the world. You can't legislate morality. The hardest lesson for the Republican Party to deal with is that you cannot legislate morality. You can teach people, you can try to conduct your own life in a better way, but you cannot legislate morality. People will find a way around it, no matter what. But the basis of the abortion argument is that everything that had to do with regulating abortion was a states' rights issue. With that being said, politically, it would behoove the Supreme Court not to take this up. Now, of course, if they don't take this up, we're going to hear everything about evil Trump nominees and activist judges and they're doing the Trump's bidding and the GOP's bidding and chain the women and the Handmaid's Tale and a host of other things. Which, by the way, I'm going to read that book and I'm going to watch the TV show too. I will get Hulu just so I can watch that piece of shit TV show and see what it is that these people think about everything. But as far as this goes, no, it would politically behoove the Supreme Court just to kick this one back down to lower courts. In fact, it would behoove the federal judiciary to take it out entirely. This is a states' rights issue. Do I have faith that they're actually going to do that? No, I don't. I really don't. From the Associated Press, DOJ to ask Supreme Court to put abortion pill limits on hold. From Paul J. Weber. The DOJ said Thursday that it will again go to the Supreme Court over abortion after a lower court ruling allowed the abortion pill mifepristone to remain available in the U.S., but reimposed past restrictions on getting and using the drug. At stake in the accelerating court battle that began in Texas is widespread access to the most common method of abortion in the U.S. Less than a year after the reversal of Roe versus Wade prompted more than a dozen states to effectively ban abortion outright. In a ruling late Wednesday, the Fifth Circuit temporarily narrowed a ruling by a lower court judge in Texas that had completely blocked the FDA's approval of mifepristone, but a divided three-judge panel still reduced the period of pregnancy when the drug can be taken and said that it could not be dispensed by mail. The ruling prevented the pill from being sent by mail amounts to another significant constraint of abortion access that could be felt even in states where abortion remains legal, some of which have already begun stockpiling mifepristone over worries that the drug will become unavailable. Why? I don't... They're trying to make a panic out of something that's not actually a panic. Where it remains legal, especially with the FDA still approving this demonic drug, why wouldn't you still be able to get it? But they're going to come back out and they're going to make this the issue that they die in. And by the way, just something that's been bothering me for a while, and this goes on to the Janet Protasewicz election here in Wisconsin. This is about power. None of these politicians that are doing this give a damn if you can kill your baby or not. None of the ones that are fighting for this at all. But this is a stand-in issue to get people out who aren't affected by the actual ring of power that the Democrats wish to wield. In my state, it's the union. It is different in other states and on a national platform, but in my state, it's the union. Janet Protasewicz doesn't give one flying fuck whether or not you can murder your baby in the womb. She doesn't. Plain and simple. Neither does Tony Evers, by the way. Neither do progressives in Madison. In the legislature, of course. The ones on the ground do. But see, in a situation where the majority of their voting base in Madison are baristas and gas station workers and part-timers and college students, the union sway doesn't hold anything to them. But the actual end game is to get enough power in the legislature and the state Supreme Court to nullify Act 10 so they can force people into a union in the production jobs instead of having right to work. It's all about giving the union back power, especially in the... Now, they make it about public sector unions, obviously, which it never was. And it was never about public sector unions. It's about getting that manufacturing base, and many other bases out there, by the way, as well, into a position where their members are forced to join the union and pay union dues, which is then an automatic funding arm for the Democrat Party. They don't care about abortion. They don't really care about your student loans either. They're never going to fix those, by the way. That's never going to happen. But it is about money and power. But we'll continue to watch this and this demonic pill and see where this goes. Let's talk about Biden's pick for labor from Axios. Biden's pick for labor in doubt from Hans Nichols. President Biden's nomination of Julie Su as labor secretary is in serious danger, as Joe Manchin has told the Biden admin that he has deep reservations about her, according to people familiar with the situation. For Biden, the cold hard math of the divided Senate means that Manchin's opposition, combined with one other Democratic defection, would scuttle Su's chances. It would mark the third defeat of a Biden nominee this year, reflecting how few Democrats who face tough re-election races in 2024 have resisted being seen as rubber stamps for Biden's picks. Two previous Biden nominees, Gigi Sohn for an open seat on the Federal Communications Commission and Phil Washington to lead the Federal Aviation admin, withdrew after Democrats signaled their opposition. The 49 Republicans in the 100-seat Senate are expected to uniformly oppose Su. There are concerns among Senate Democrats that backing Su that Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema, a Democrat turned independent, will also vote no, although she has not said so. With Senate Democrats facing a difficult map in 2024, vulnerable senators such as Manchin, Sinema, and Tester are looking for ways to create some political space from Biden, whose approval-disapproval ratings is an 8 points underwater in a national polls according to a Real Clear Politics average. Let's pop that up here. Those are some of the best numbers that he's had in quite a while, actually. Compared to what he has been, Biden is rocketing in this. Sue's nomination is also a front in the running war between labor unions and corporate interests on the best ways to protect workers' rights while promoting a dynamic economy. She was narrowly confirmed early in Biden's term as a deputy to then Secretary Marty Walsh, who left earlier this year to lead the NHL's Players Union. Like they did in Sue's previous confirmation battle, Republicans have planned to focus on the more than $30 billion in unemployment benefits that criminals scammed in California, while she led that state's labor commission. So, well, good. Honestly, one of the big concerns under the Trump years was the fact that so many of his people were acting, that they didn't have confirmations. And I'm kind of glad to see people are rejecting Biden's ability to have confirmations too. It starts to show the weakness of the government and the weakness of the candidate himself. I like that. The New York Post talking about our friends in Tennessee. Tennessee Rep. Justin Jones tossed a traffic cone at a driver during a 2020 BLM protest. From Ronnie Reyes. Unearthed surveillance footage from a 2020 BLM protest outside the Tennessee Capitol shows newly reinstated Rep. Justin Jones throwing a traffic cone at a driver in frustration. Jones, who was returned to office after leading a protest in the Capitol against gun violence in the wake of the Nashville school shooting, was seen on video blocking a street with 6 other demonstrators in June 18th of 2020. Dressed in all black and a tan-brimmed hat, the future lawmaker could be seen attempting to stop a white truck trying to drive around them by placing a traffic cone in front of the vehicle. Undeterred, the driver runs over the cone, causing the group to approach the truck and yell at him with a megaphone. Appearing angered by the driver's actions, Jones can be seen pulling the cone from underneath the vehicle and using it to repeatedly jab the driver, who attempts to smack it away. As the driver tries to speed up, Jones tosses it into the truck, but the driver quickly pushes it out and makes the getaway. During the incident, another driver on the opposite side of the stalled road could also be seen confronting the protesters, with their vehicle inching forward until it bumped into one of them. Despite the small push, the protester, wearing a neon green long-sleeve shirt, threw themselves onto the ground and lay down in front of the cars as another demonstrator rushed to check on them. And we can, I believe, watch this footage. Does not appear to be any audio. Dude, in Tennessee, that is a good way to get killed. Oh no, it hit me, I'm dying! I mean, that's more deference than I would have given that moron. I'm telling you right now, if you're reaching to my pickup while I'm in traffic, you're not getting that kind of deference. I'm sorry. I'm taking that as an attempt on my life, and we'll treat it as such. Some more government official news. GOP-controlled Arizona House votes to expel Republican member. From Zoe Richards. A Republican legislator in Arizona was expelled Wednesday after she invited an election denier to provide testimony laced with unsubstantiated allegations that various elected officials were involved in bribery schemes that affected the outcomes of the 2020 and 2022 elections. Liz Harris was ousted in a 46-13 vote, clearing the two-thirds majority needed for removal. The ethics panel released a report on Tuesday saying she committed disorderly behavior and damaged the institutional integrity of the House. The House Ethics Panel launched an investigation into Harris, prompted by a complaint from a Democratic legislator after she invited insurance agent Jacqueline Breger to promote a series of unfounded allegations at a televised legislative hearing on elections. At the February 23rd hearing, Breger claimed that bribes and infiltration have been used to affect the outcome of the 2022 elections, and she pointed the finger at state officials such as Katie Hobbs, according to the Ethics Committee report. Breger also claimed that the LDS Church controls the government agencies and was integral to the laundering activities, the report said. Harris, who was a member of the Municipal Oversight and Elections Committee, had proposed the joint hearing with the Senate Elections Committee. The Ethics Committee said that Harris was not surprised or upset by Breger's testimony, and that she expected the presentation would be shut down, according to a review of the text messages she exchanged with Breger that were revealed over the course of the panel's investigation. What's nice about this, and we're seeing more of this, is that we're seeing more indicators that the legislators are willing to throw people out. We didn't see a lot of that before. There are reports, and I can't confirm because I wasn't around at the time, that when impeachment was first brought forward as an idea, when they started to make the constitutional bounds for impeachment, the hope was that there were going to be impeachments left and right. Like anybody who stepped even a little bit out of line in the House and the federal level would be impeached. Then they'd get the investigation and hold the Senate vote as to whether or not to remove that person. But always have the investigations, always have everything. And really for a while, Congress has turned into a boys' club. Now, would I like to see some of that ire turned against some of the people who are longer sitting in there? Oh, hell yes. Because for the most part, they're going after newer members. And this is on both sides too, by the way, but newer members who are uppity and upstarty, instead of people who have been entrenched in these positions for a long time. Do I think that bringing somebody in to testify falls under the reins of expulsion? No, I don't. I think that was I think the way that Congresses, both state and federal, have been run for a long time, I think that was overkill by a lot. But as far as what I think the government should be, yes, there should be more votes to expel, more recalls, more impeachments, and more investigations into everybody who is sitting in one of these seats. And that is at all levels, too, by the way. Speaking of government officials behaving badly, another hero on the left. From the New York Post. Representative Katie Porter scalded ex-husband's scalp with potatoes, according to document. From Josh Christensen. The former husband of Rep. Katie Porter said the California Democrat frequently abused him verbally and threw toys, books, and other objects at him during their marriage. Even pouring scalding hot mashed potatoes on his head during a fight, according to divorce records. Matthew Hoffman, who filed for divorce from Porter in 2013, said in a request for a restraining order, dated April 30th of that year, that he was routinely called a fucking idiot and a fucking incompetent by his rage-prone spouse, who also shattered a glass coffee pot in their kitchen on March of 2012 when she felt their house wasn't clean enough. Well, it sounds like Rebecca. I know I don't name names a lot on that one, but man, does that sound like her. My last live-in girlfriend was a lot like that. She would not let me have a cell phone because she said, "You're too fucking dumb to operate it," Hoffman said of Porter, 49, who has also been accused of ridiculing former members of her staff. When she gets angry, she will claw and scratch her arms and then say, "Look what you made me do," Hoffman said in the records first obtained by DailyMail.com. She regularly says that I'm a bad parent in front of the kids. Recently, children began spitting at me and throwing their food at me, calling me bad daddy. And this is the person, by the way, that the left wants sitting in the Senate seat. Now, in order for any of this to hold water in her election campaign, I would need to see actual proof of some of this. Right now, basically what we're getting is hearsay and he said, she said. And she's not going to come back and admit to any of this. But this is definitely something that needs to be looked into. And we have corroborating statements from her staff as well. So I'm not saying she did it, but I'm saying it's worth a look. In 2006, Hoffman said Porter took issue with how Hoffman was preparing the mashed potatoes for dinner, asking him, "Can you read the fucking instructions?" Then her ex-husband said Porter raised a ceramic bowl of steaming hot potatoes and dumped them on my head, burning my scalp. In response to Hoffman's allegations, Porter, then a professor of bankruptcy law at the University of California, Irvine in Orange County, claimed her own request for a restraining order that her ex ordered her out of the house on April 24, 2013, and called her a dumb bitch, a despicable person, and a fucking evil before adding that she should rot in hell. Man, these people sound charming. When you vowed till death do you part, you weren't actually supposed to try to enact that on each other. A bit more Feinstein news for us here. From Politico. Feinstein's condition sparks concern she won't return to the Senate. From Christopher Catalego, Jennifer Habercorn, and Catherine Tully McManus. After Dianne Feinstein announced she'd contracted shingles in early March, her staff said she planned to return to the Senate within a matter of weeks. But multiple Democrats close to her, as well as top-ranking congressional aides, are growing increasingly concerned that she may never come back to Washington at all. The 89-year-old California senator has spent nearly 2 months away from the Capitol, including a stint in the hospital, before returning home to San Francisco to recover. 3 people familiar with the matter, who have visited with the senator in recent weeks or have been briefed on her status, say her diagnosis appears to have been taking a heavy toll on her. Other confidants, including 2 who have seen or spoken with the senator, underscored that they are still hopeful she could serve out her nearly 2 years that remain in her term, but neither of those people, who addressed the sensitive matter on condition of anonymity, indicated that they were confident she would be able to do so from Washington. In a statement released late Wednesday after the story first posted, Feinstein did not identify an expected return date and said that she has asked Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to temporarily replace her on the Judiciary Committee so that the panel could process nominations, a highly unusual move. I don't think she's coming back. I think Gavin's going to get an appointment after all. And I know that she went out and tried very hard to go back in and finish out what it is that, and finish out her term, but yeah, guys, I don't think that she's coming back. All right, some supply chain news. Thousands of cows killed in fire explosion at dairy farm in Texas, Panhandle reports. Thousands of cows were killed in an explosion and a fire at a dairy farm in the Texas Panhandle earlier this week, according to media reports. The Castro County Sheriff's Office and multiple fire departments responded to the incident on Monday night at the South Fork Dairy Farms near Dimmitt, a city between Lubbock and Amarillo. A female employee was trapped inside and was rescued by firefighters. According to the sheriff, she was flown to a hospital in Lubbock and was in critical condition at the last check, KFDA reported. Sheriff Sal Rivera said the extent of the damage and the exact number of animals is killed is under investigation, but initial reports say more than 18,000 cows. Guess what? Your steak price is going up. Your count is probably close to that. There's some that survived, there's some that are probably injured to the point that they'll have to be destroyed, Rivera told KFDA. KFDA reported that only a small percentage of animals lived, and those surviving cows will be placed in a nearby facility by the same owner. Part of this main part here, where the cattle are held, is probably a total loss. The dairy part has probably some damage from the smoke and maybe the fire. The sheriff told KVII that the fire led to the explosion that spread through the pens holding the cows. It was likely caused by an equipment malfunction. Media reports state that the dairy farm has only been there for less than a year. So we've got the cloud of smoke coming up off of this. Bet you it smelled really good. Somebody had to say it. I bet you it smelled really, really good. Like seared steak. And we have another one here. Nearly 20,000 dairy cows killed, worker injured in explosion and fire at Texas farm. This would be the most deadly fire involving cattle in the past decade since we started tracking that in 2013, said Marjorie Fishman with the Animal Welfare Institute. The deadliest barn fire overall that we began tracking in 2013 was a fire at a high-grade egg producer's North Manchester, Indiana, that killed 1 million chickens, according to Fishman. A 2022 report by the Institute noted that there were several instances in which 100,000 to 400,000 chickens were killed in a single fire. The cause of the fire at the dairy farm has not yet been confirmed, though Castro County Sheriff Sal Rivera told KCBD on Tuesday that early speculation is that the methane may have been ignited by overheating electrical equipment used to suck out waste from the holding pens. The state fire marshal is investigating the cause of the fire. So, I don't know if I will say foul play on this. But I'm going to say off the bat, 20,000 times, I mean, typically you get 500 pounds of meat off a cow. And the dairy products and everything else, but just on the meat. Actually, I shouldn't probably go down that route because dairy cows typically, like milking cows, aren't used for meat, typically. Because they get old and the meat gets tough. But either way, I mean, that's a big chunk out of the supply chain for dairy. A lot of cheese is probably going to go up, a lot of milk. A lot of things that we use every day. Because like eggs, milk is another one of those things that gets used in almost everything that we buy. So, watch for inflation on food prices because I can't say it's going to get worse, but I have my suspicions. Alright, and the last one on news, we actually are getting done before 8 o'clock tonight. Nice. But we've still got things I like and things that I hate. And we started late today, so. Trump sues former lawyer Michael Cohen. He witnesses a Manhattan DA probe for $500 million from Kevin Bräuninger. Former President Trump sued his one-time personal lawyer and fixer, seeking at least $500 million for alleged breaches of contract and unjust enrichment. The civil suit filed in federal court in Miami accused Cohen of spreading falsehoods about Trump, violating his attorney-client relationship, which, by the way, is something to watch for because, yes, he did violate attorney-client privilege a lot, and breaching the confidentiality agreement he had signed with the Trump Organization. The allegations against Cohen, whose once close relationship with Trump imploded in 2018, come as the disbarred lawyer has become a key witness against the former president in a criminal case in Manhattan. The first ex-president to face criminal charges pleaded not guilty earlier this month to 34 counts of falsifying business records in the case. It centers on hush money payments that Cohen made. We know about that. Alejandro Brito, Trump's attorney in the case, referred CNBC's questions about the timing of the new lawsuit against Cohen to a spokesman for Trump's 2024 presidential campaign. The spokesman said in a statement that the lawsuit and Cohen's alleged wrongdoing stand for themselves. Cohen's most egregious breaches of fiduciary duty and contract came in connection with the tell-all books he published in 2020 and 2022, as well as claims he made on his podcast, Mea Culpa, the lawsuit alleged. Lanny Damus, Cohen's attorney, says Trump appears to once again be using and abusing the judicial system, which is ironic coming from this entire situation. So, we've got another big lawsuit coming. And the Trump and the Stormy Daniels saga is far from over. Aren't you thrilled? Alright, let's do a few things that I like and a couple things that I hate. Thing that I like, number one. I have put this on and off the stack since this happened. I don't like talking about Anna Kasparian. But when people do good, and they break out of the norms and the two-party religion, they deserve praise. I'll never apologize. Leftist Anna Kasparian stands firm after rejecting birthing person terminology. From Alex Nitzberg. Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks is standing behind her view that terms such as birthing person are degrading to women. The left-wing media figure faced blowback from other leftists last month after she spoke out against terminology sometimes used to refer to women, such as person who menstruates. I'm a woman, please don't ever refer to me as a person with a uterus, birthing person, or person who menstruates. How do people not realize how degrading this is? You can support the transgender community without doing this shit. Kasparian tweeted in March. I'm sure a lot of women don't want to be minimized to bodily functions or body parts, she noted in another tweet. On Monday, Kasparian stood firm, noting that she will not apologize for wanting to be called a woman. Oliami Olurin says you made transphobic statements, and we spent an hour of the show defending you from allegations of being a TERF rather than addressing these substantive problems with your comments. I said I felt like they were coddling you. I stand by that. If you think that makes me a hater, knock. Kasparian then comes back and says, LOL, the meltdowns over wanting to be referred to as a woman rather than a birthing person is pretty wild. I will never apologize for that, especially as a biological woman who has had a fucking lifetime of being told I'm less than. I'm a woman. No apologies. I am glad to see some of these people stand up because, honestly, especially for the progressive wing that the Young Turks comes out of, you are supposed to be lock, stock, and barrel in whatever stupid ideology they bring forward to you and demand that you follow. Whatever insanity, whatever they bring up, you are supposed to just come up and agree and accept without a question and say, yes, yes, sir, give me another, please. And I'm glad at least one of them is standing up. And like even with J.K. Rowling, who is in no way a conservative person whatsoever, who's being attributed as a Trumper and a conservative and a Republican and all this and that because she's in the same boat. I'm not a birthing person, I am a woman. Even being called out by the people that she made famous for this position. So good on Anna Kasparian. I'm very happy to report on that one. ABC Action News reporting caught on video. Phillies Dollar Dog Night turns into food fight. Some fans ejected. From Christy Ileto. Now, I criticize adults a lot for acting like children. I don't want an adult today. Just let me go back and have coloring books and nap time. Let's not go to work. I can't adult today. I can't do this. I hate that shit with a flaming, fiery passion. But sometimes you can have a little bit of fun and a little bit of childish fun as well. The simple pleasures, as long as your body can support them. Going sledding, hitting a baseball with your kid, doing that kind of stuff, or even letting loose in a crowd of people and having a food fight. Something where typically nobody gets hurt. Now, sometimes your tensions run high and people start taking swings, which I'm sure was why some of these people got ejected. But yes, there's a lot of waste there. Yes, we are having a hard time with food prices and the supply chain. But we do have a chance where people got up, had a little bit of fun, where it's very unlikely people will get seriously hurt. It does still happen. But let off a little bit of steam as well. If you don't know about the Philadelphia Phillies Dollar Dog Night at Citizens Bank Park, chances are you do now. The fan favorite game day took a viral turn on Tuesday in section 112. It started in our section with them having a hot dog eating contest, said Robert Kristovich. This kind of eating was a bunch of hot dogs. He had 13 people. He had 13 and people were trying to get him. People were like, eat another one. So they started throwing hot dogs to him. The guard came over and started yelling, and then it just went nuts. Kristovich captured video of the hot dogs flying across the ballpark. A different angle shows the hot dogs being thrown close enough that they almost get onto the field. He says at some point during the game, the Flying Franks turned into a big food fight, with a meal being tossed across rows from one section to the next. He says some fans eventually got thrown out of the game, which is a shame. They were throwing people out like crazy, because it progressed as things do, and yeah, there's some point where you gotta put a stop to it before people start swinging. To water bottles, and so the water bottles started coming from the upper deck. I was there with my boys and we got out, he said, and then the aluminum bottles. He said he's been to Dollar Dog Nights before and he's never seen anything quite like this. But he adds there was nothing malicious. There are 2 more Dollar Dog Nights, one on April 25th and another on May 9th. The Phillies release a statement to Action News. There were several people who were ejected from our game last night as a result of their unruly behavior. A behavior which the Phillies do not condone. In addition, our staff took the appropriate action to assist any fans who voiced complaints. Unfortunately, the small minority of people involved in this situation put a regular fan base in a negative light. I think this is hilarious, by the way. And again, I mean, yes, it escalated and water bottles came out, and I'm sure that the next step was aluminum beer bottles after that. But just in that moment of people just flinging hot dogs at each other, I mean, nobody got hurt by a hot dog. Somebody maybe got a little mustard in the eye or something, but nobody really got hurt by a hot dog. It's soft. It hits your body, it bounces off. You grab one back and you toss it back at the person. We had a food fight once on a school bus when I was a kid. We were on the longest route in our school, because we were, I think, the furthest away from our school. And it was towards the end of the year. And at the end, the bus driver, I had to have been, I was in middle school, I think. Somebody just started flinging stuff one day, and it just escalated. And a lot of people had their lunches, and it went nuts. And then that same bus driver let us go back and do it again the next day, which, the one in the morning was impromptu. The one at night was a little bit more planned, but we also had more food to go around. It was a lot of fun. And again, because most of it is soft, light food items, nobody really got hurt. You got with a raisin or a cracker or something every once in a while, but nobody really got hurt. Feel sorry for the person who had to sweep out the bus, but it was condoned, it was fun, and we just made sure that we didn't hit the bus driver, and everything was all good. Another one here that I really like. Target shopper demands reparations. Security guard punches her in the face. from Virginia Cruta. The face was probably not appropriate. But the rest of it, a Target shopper demanded reparations from her local store in the form of $1,000 worth of groceries and got punched in the face instead. The incident took place last October in Blue Ash, Ohio, but video of the incident only began circulating last week. The shopper, a black woman who was reportedly identified as Karen Ivory, well, of course she was a Karen, first told her cashier that she was entitled to reparations that would cover the cost of her purchases, and then demanded to see the manager. When the manager approached, Ivory continued to demand reparations, shouting at the manager aggressively and then eventually backing her into the cafe in front of the store. Let's watch.
21 safe fire.
487, 27, 421, repeat.
Safe for fire. So what happened?
Okay, you seem secure at 2046.
Okay.
Came up, I tried to verbally de-escalate. She told me that she wanted to wreck it out, and I told her we couldn't do that.
Okay.
And then she said, "Excuse me," and I was like, "Man, like I need you to back up or leave, like, but we can't do that for you." So she started charging at me. I came all the way back into my office into an enclosed space, and I hit her in the face.
Okay. Are you
And I have it all on video.
Ma'am, are you okay?
Physically, I'm okay. Emotionally, I am there.
Car 4 David 31,
Okay.
in front of the big lot,
Let me test
825
your
Main.
face.
Escape for suspicion.
According to the manager's statement, a cashier called over the manager where the suspect was kind of whispering, asking her to make reparations regarding her groceries of over $1,000. The manager told the suspect that if she wanted a donation, she needed to call in the morning. This response led the suspect to become verbally aggressive, screaming and forcing the manager to back into the cafe counter. A security staff member intervened and told the suspect to calm down before the suspect began backing him into the security office while screaming.
So the epic movie music in the background just makes this even worth it. I wasn't prepared for that. I paused the music over on this side, our regular background music, and I kept hearing music. I'm like, is this in the video? It is.
Inside the office, the security staff member punched the suspect in self-defense and then called the police.
Wham! Let's watch that again.
Inside the office, the security staff member punched the suspect in self-defense and then called the police. Member punched the suspect in self. Inside the office, the security staff member punched the suspect in self-defense and then called the police.
According to the police report reviewed by the New York Post, as soon as the manager approached, Ivory began to shout at her. Ivory kept berating her about reparations and privileged life, the report alleged. Zach Cotter, a store loss prevention officer, intervened when Ivory backed the manager into the store's cafe, and she turned on him, aggressively approaching as he backed into a nearby security office. He tried to close the door once he got into the office, but Ivory pushed her way in and continued to shout at him. Backed into a corner of the office, Cotter punched Ivory in the face, knocking her to the ground. Honestly, I think just about everything was done right here at this point. When she pushed through the door, that was the point where it turned into a self-defensive position. But everybody who was in this situation, and where was this, by the way? This woman saying this is a Rosa Parks moment. This was in Ohio, which is a stand your ground state. The loss prevention manager and the manager both could have come up and struck first at any time, given the threat of the situation. But they continued to dutifully retreat until the point where there was no place else to retreat to, and then acted back in self-defense. And reparations is not stealing, by the way. Especially given the fact that this manager or the victim, both, neither one of them, victim, suspect, whichever, neither one of them were involved in the slave trade. That woman, Karen Ivory, has never been a slave, and the manager has never held slaves. One more time. Can we get away with this one more time?
Inside the office, the security staff member punched the suspect in self-defense and then called the police.
Bam! Oh, I know people that have worked at Walmart. I've heard of some crazy crap. Alright, one more thing that I like, and we'll do a couple things that I hate, and then we'll be out of here for the night. From CNN, NPR, and PBS stop using Twitter after receiving the government-funded media label. From Claire Duffy. We're going to just briefly go over this article, not very much into this. NPR on Wednesday said it's suspending the use of Twitter after clashing with the social media company and its owner Elon Musk over the controversial new state-affiliated media label applied to its accounts. Because we talked about this the other day, last week Twitter labeled the radio broadcaster as state-affiliated media. The moves earlier in the week, PBS had criticized the label, saying it leaves the inaccurate impression that PBS is wholly funded by the federal government. PBS is primarily funded by the public and philanthropic organizations, with only a small portion of our funding coming from entities affiliated with the government, and yet it's still being funded by the government. So we know the review. We talked about it earlier in the week. My tweet coming off of this with a picture that says, talking about it, NPR says it won't tweet from @NPR until Twitter removes the false state-affiliated label. We stopped tweeting from the main NPR account attached to that false label to it because each tweet we made would carry it. To which I quoted and replied and said, well, would you look at that? Elon Musk really did improve Twitter. And he did. He really did. Now let's do a couple things that we'll do a straddle in one first. I just spent well over a year reading the same book. Partially because it was a very long book, partially because it was a very hard book to get into. Now I'm a completionist, which means that because I started it, I wanted to finish it, and it's part of a series that I wanted to go back through and finish. But this was a hard book with a fantastic story. If you have the patience for the story, I do highly recommend this book. But you need to know what you are getting into because it is very, very dry and technical. And that book is The Sum of All Fears by Tom Clancy. A brief rundown. Clancy evolves from storyteller to novelist in his latest techno thriller. As gadgets take second place to politics and personalities, in the late 90s, the world is cautiously emerging from the Cold War. Even the Arab-Israeli conflict is being resolved, thanks to the cleverness of Clancy's hero, Jack Ryan. But as confrontation yields to cooperation, what becomes of displaced terrorists? Palestinians without cause and East Germans without a country seek to rekindle US-USSR animosity. A small nuclear device has exploded at the Super Bowl. In Berlin, America and Russia troops are tricked into firing on one another, and residual suspicions carry the action from there. Now, first of all, this book could have been about 400 pages shorter, and it would not have affected the story. And every part of the story, by the way, is carefully crafted into what happened. And it was very, very good. It was very intense, especially when you got to the last quarter. It started just cruising along into a point that even with the technical detail, you really didn't want to put it down. It took me probably 12 months by itself to read the first 3/4 of the book. and then a matter of weeks to finish the last quarter. My gripe with this book is the technical detail, especially given the fact that in the afterword of the book, it is stated that many of the technical details were actually falsified because Penguin Publisher House didn't want you to know how to make an atomic bomb. If you're able to actually find a defunct atomic bomb, they didn't want you to know how to be able to repair it and actually make one, make it functional again. So they made a bunch of stuff that sounded really good, but wasn't actually accurate to the story. From just when I saw that, that did kind of make me boil a little bit. Like, there are well over 120 pages that are just dedicated to the machining, process, assembly, and function of the nuclear bomb. That's 120 pages that could have been condensed into Bach was working on this silently. Not a matter of the measurements, how it all fit together, the grace of that. And I mean, Clancy is really good at usually taking that kind of thing and making it still somewhat interesting. I've got a machining and mechanical background, but even this was too intense for me as far as the mechanical side of things go. Now, the political intrigue, the C plot and the F plot especially, both are very gripping sides of things. And when you get past the 90% mark, if you read this on Kindle, you will be at the edge of your seat, wondering what's going to happen next. So, again, if you've got the patience to get through 120 pages of technical detail, and only to find out at the end that it was altered for fictitious purposes, I do highly recommend this book. I am trying to get through all of the Jack Ryan books, which is why I wanted to make sure that I finished this, even if it was too dry and too technical at many moments for me to, and it was something I was unable to get through, but I would still recommend this to anybody who has the patience to go through and do that. Absolutely. So, Sum of All Fears, check it. It's like $10 on Kindle. I know Publishers Weekly is listed for $27.95. It's like $10 on Kindle. And I will be reading, not now, I'm reading because I promised John that I would as soon as I finish this one. I'm reading Starship Troopers now, and I do have a few others that I want to get to before I take on another big Clancy book like this. But I will be reading Dead of Honor next in the series, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the story after what was left in the end of this book. And I might even watch the Ben Affleck movie, although I fear that Ben Affleck might ruin it for me, but I might go and watch the Ben Affleck movie just for fun, you know? Let's see. Sully says, one thing I like, Nintendo released the final trailer for the new Zelda game a month out. Thing that I hate, Florida's a ridiculous amount of mosquitoes at night. Sully, I should send you one of my mosquito killing plants, especially given the fact that I have way too many of them. We'll talk. We'll talk after this. Other things that I hate. From News 9 ABC. Tennessee florist refuses service for Republican National Committee fundraising event. From Caitlin Miller. A Nashville-based florist has refused a large order for a Republican National Convention fundraising set for the weekend in Nashville. The FLWR shop wrote a letter to RNC declining the opportunity to provide floral arrangements because they wanted to publicly clarify their political stance and are asking for gun reform. Okay, well, there are 1,000 other florists in Nashville that will go and service this event. Yeah, text John and ask him about it, because he had one. He didn't know how to take care of it properly, so it actually did pass, unfortunately, but he's going to try again on, because I have a bunch of them now that are ready to sell, so yeah, we'll talk. We've got the Discord, we'll talk. In an Instagram post, the FLWR shop publicly declined the request for the RNC event, saying they would like to challenge others in the Nashville event industry to say no to taking money or jobs from the Republican Party until they begin to make the changes to gun laws that most Americans are calling for. You just missed the book review, KTZed. You just missed it. WZTV went to the FLWR shop in Belle Meade to try to speak with the owner about his stance, but he was not in the store. The owner followed up with a statement saying, "Most Americans, including conservatives, agree that we need some common sense reform of gun laws. Those are not conservatives. Those are conservative cucks." Refusing to work with the RNC is not a rebuke of conservative values. It was a plea to our lawmakers to step up and do what Americans are asking and expecting of them. And she speaks as well.
If their goal was to be about putting focus on what they say they're supposed to do is gun control, the reality is that's not what we're talking about. We're bringing up right now their shop and about their choosing one political ideology over another.
That's a very, very cut and curt version of that, then selectively edited. Look, you could have said no, and they would have gone on to another flower shop, but you've taken this point to go up and try to get famous off of this, and that's what they're doing, by the way. The FLWR shop is not doing this for principles and purposes. They're doing this for the fact that they wanted to get on to News Channel 9, and even they're on. I found the story because of the Daily Wire and the Blaze. They did it to go viral. They did it for the attention. They did it to come back and say, "Hey, come on and buy more flowers from the FLWR shop in Nashville. We hate guns as much as you do. And we stood up to those evil, nasty Republicans." And we also have a couple of other things that are steering into the skid in our crime-ridden cities and our filthy cities. New York City names its first ever rat czar. Rats are tough, but New Yorkers are tougher, apparently. Aaron Katersky. New York City now has a rat czar. Kathleen Karate has been named the city's director of rodent mitigation. "You'll be seeing a lot of me and a lot less rats," Karate said Wednesday after she was introduced by Mayor Eric Adams. Added Adams, "Kathy has the knowledge, drive, and experience and energy to send rats packing and create a cleaner, more welcoming city for all New Yorkers." The mayor also announced $3.5 million for rat mitigation in Harlem. The money will fund new techniques and new staff members to inspect, exterminate, and clean public spaces. "He hates rats, I hate rats, every New Yorker hates rats," Karate said. "Rats are tough, but New Yorkers are tougher." Karate, a former elementary school teacher and land use expert who specializes in urban sustainability, was chosen out of 900 applicants. Your city has gotten so, and it has gotten bad, that you need to appoint a specific exterminator to coordinate all the rest of the exterminators. And this is just going to be another cushy government job where somebody is probably not going to do the vast majority of what it is that they said they were going to do, but still be up on the government dole, eligible for that big cushy retirement, that big pension plan, and everything else I want. And it's an appointed position as well. My big question for this is, whose political pockets did she line? And the last one, LA moves to rein in catalytic converter theft, but some question the need for a new law. From David Zanisser of the LA Times. Looking to combat a rash of thefts from Priuses and other cars, the LA City Council voted Tuesday to make it illegal to possess an unattached catalytic converter without proof of ownership. That's already illegal. Theft is already illegal. This is the same thing as the lynching law. Well, the lynching law has a political ramification to it. But this is the same thing as when they go back in and they try to go back and make a hate crime or attach hate. Dude, murder's already illegal. Theft is already illegal. On an 8-4 vote, the council approved an ordinance allowing police to arrest anyone who has a catalytic converter that's not connected to a vehicle and fails to produce a receipt or other identifying information such as documentation from an auto repair shop, spelling out the ownership. Councilmember John Lee, who represents the Northwest San Fernando Valley, said the new ordinance would give the LAPD a much-needed tool at a time when theft victims are struggling to find replacements for their stolen catalytic converters. The Times recently found that Prius owners frequently wait several months for a replacement part, a situation that frequently leaves them without a working vehicle. Well, the piece of pipe in there, get on with your day. Everyone who's had a catalytic converter stolen knows that theft is only one part of it, Lee said. Pay for the bill, wait for the part, then waiting for the repair, and you really have no idea when you're getting your car back. Council members Heather Hutt, Nithya Raman, Marquise Harris Dawson, and Eunice Hernandez voted against the measure. Hernandez, who represents part of the East Side, said there are already multiple laws on the books tackling catalytic converter theft. Yes! Yes, there are! It's called theft! Hernandez says the city's ordinance, which would treat the possession of catalytic converters as a misdemeanor, would disproportionately target Black, Latino, Indigenous, and low-income residents. Well, we're not going to go down that road. That's something we can't say on YouTube. A criminal conviction and jail time can damage someone's life forever, leading to collateral consequences like the inability to obtain jobs, rent apartments, and get a loan, she said. That puts people in a revolving door of desperation and recidivism. When you steal a catalytic converter, which is a felony, by the way, because typically that's over $1,000 worth of merchandise, even if you turn in a bad one. That's already against the law, and you're already in this pipeline. The city had approximately 8,000 reported catalytic converter thefts last year, up from 972 reported in 2018, according to Lee. Some Prius owners have seen the converted car or coveted car part, which is used to control emissions, stolen 2, 3, even 4 times. Oh, KTZed must be way back in this because she says that drug is really important for women who miscarry. Talking about mifepristone, apparently. Yeah, that's way back in this. How far back is KTZed? Oh! Where were we talking about mifepristone? I don't even remember. Because we went to inflation. Oh, the appeals court. Okay, so KTZed is right after the inflation part of this. She must be coming up on double speed. She's got to be. So she will catch up to the book review. As far as this goes, the problem with this is a lesser law for something that's already illegal. You're trying to crack down on something that's already illegal by making it illegal to even have this. And again, like they point out, if I take the cats off my truck and put a high flow in there, I'm going to take the regular cats and bring them over to the scrapyard because they're worth a buttload of money. Or if I just straight pipe it, I can't do that. The O2 sensors would have a heart attack if I did that on my truck. It's a 2014. Or if I put a high flow into something like an old Monte Carlo or something, and take it over to the scrapyard. All the ones I'm under interrogation like crazy. And I've had that before too, by the way. My old job would let me on some of the stuff that didn't get, like, it wasn't accepted for warranty, or it had no core value on it. A lot of times, most of the time it was DPFs, but one time I got a DOC, which is basically an enlarged diesel catalytic converter. And I took that over to the scrapyard, and man, oh man, it was like somebody just watched me walk out of Fort Knox an hour after it got robbed. It was interrogation, and they had to go run serial numbers and check my driver's license, and I thought they were going to fingerprint me and all kinds of other things for that. So, I mean, catalytic converter stuff is already heavily scrutinized. But there's no reason to make a misdemeanor to combat something that's already a felony. Yeah, I'll have to go text RRC because he's trying to watch me on DLive too. Alright, but we're going to head out of here for the day. Really good show. Let me actually catch up with that right now before we get out of here. Plans in the chat. Alright, anyway, let's head out of here for the night. Let's throw the outro music up, which I've actually got to go find because I restarted the computer before we got started. There it is. There it is. Man, everything's rearranged around here. Alright, so thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat. It was a good, lively crowd tonight. A little bit of quiet lull in the middle of the show, but we got some more people back up here. Reminder before we do head out for the night, and I'll touch again on this again tomorrow, is that over the weekend I'm going to be doing a couple test streams on Rumble only, which that'll be linked in the Discord and over on the Twitter side as well. I'll be starting to do that and figure out how to do that. Thanks to, in part, revelation from the R-rated conservative, and thanks to the fact that I'm actually going to go through, and now that I know that basic is Rumble, when I get charged on my credit card statement, I won't go back and try to claim that I got fraudulently hit by an internet company on my credit card. So we'll be doing some of that, and if I can get it to work, we'll do a Q&A over on the Rumble side as well, and it's going to be spicy stuff, so I don't have to go by, it'll be Rumble only, so I don't have to go by YouTube standards. So we'll be back here, and again, if I can keep that working, that will be part of our regular lineup, and we'll see if we can't pull a Rumble audience in as well. But with that, we're out of here. Everybody, have a great night. Stick around if you're on the Twitch side, and we will go and find somebody to raid. Otherwise, we will see you here tomorrow and see what happens in the next 21 and a half hours on the news. We'll see what's happening there. We'll see if we have any updates on the Pentagon leaks, if we've got anything on the presidential race, or a host of other things that we will see then. But take care, be good, have a great night. If you see the RRC streaming, go and check him out. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on Contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.